Good evening, and welcome to the 2025 National Wildlife Refuge Awards. I'm Desiree Sorensen-Groves, President and CEO of the National Wildlife Refuge Association. Tonight I'm coming to you from the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge, one of the most iconic refuges in the entire refuge system. For these awards, we're coming back to communities where the people live and work. Tonight, you're going to see 4 short films. And while each of these are unique and showcasing the awardees, one constant truth remains. The refuge system runs on people. These are the people who show up day after day, year after year, with passion, grit, and determination and love for their surroundings. You're also going to hear from National Wildlife Refuge Association leadership tonight on ways that you can help us help the refuge system. But before we begin, a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, if you have any technical issues whatsoever, please put your question in the chat. Right now, we're going to have staff that are there who'll be monitoring it. They're going to put their names in the chat right now so you know who to look for. Also, this is a live broadcast, so please mute your microphones. And if you have your camera on, just remember that we can see you. Also, in the chat, make sure that you congratulate each of our awardees. They're on here tonight, their family and friends are here, so make sure that they hear from you about why what you do matters so much to all of us. Thank you again for joining tonight for our national broadcast. With that, let's get started. The National Wildlife Refuge System is America's only public lands where wildlife comes first. There's over 570 national wildlife refuges encompassing every kind of habitat that you can imagine. Refuges are local. They are nature next door. They support wildlife. They serve communities through clean water, flood protection, outdoor recreation, and education. And none of this happens by accident. Refuges do not manage themselves. It takes people, refuge staff, volunteers, friends groups, who all bring experience, expertise, relationships, passion, and public trust to the work. Tonight, we're honoring 4 awardees who embody that. Across the refuge system, volunteers give so much of their time and energy and passion. This year's recipient of the Volunteer of the Year Award is Carl Zenger. Carl is from the Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge in New York. He's contributed over 45,000 hours. That's the equivalent of 23 full-time years. And it matters. Here's Carl's story.
We have about 20 of these around the area here. This way. In fact, any of the ones that I monitor, I've done this to. Now, see this. This is a starling. Starling has been in here and built that nest, and we keep cleaning those out. Yeah, this kind of a neat little. You can make a little cup in there. Even though it's an invasive species, right? Yeah.
What first stood out at me about Carl was his dedication and passion to the refuge and the resource. He was always around, couldn't get rid of him. I mean, he's working 8 hours a day here with the refuge, just alongside the staff. And so it was really evident that Carl really wanted to give and give and give, and he did that. A very unusual type of volunteer that we had here.
Yeah, you can see a couple of bluebird boxes down here.
I think it's his love for the wildlife. I mean, he started the Bluebird Trail, he started the Kestrel program, he started the Purple Martin program, and when you boil everything down, that's why we're here, is to help the wildlife and to create an environment for them to be happy and live their life. He gets that, and I think that's his most important quality, even though he likes to mow, that's his favorite thing. But even that helps the environment of the refuge in a way, in different ways.
See, this needs some maintenance. This guard here is not where it should be. It should be pulled up. That one should be pulled down. I think it was this tire right here. I was mowing one day and I just happened to look down and a deer horn came right up around here, stuck right in the tire. And so there's a hole in that tire right there. There's holes all over.
Iroquois is located in western New York. It was established in 1958, mainly for waterfowl, but we serve a lot of other wildlife and bird species. We have several habitats, including grasslands, forest lands, shrublands, forested wetlands, and open marshes, marshlands. So Carl, I think, has impacted just about every phase of what we do here at the refuge. Habitat management, wildlife monitoring, interpretation education programs, maintenance.
We got weeds in this area, we got weeds in that area, and we got thistles over here. We got a problem with thistles growing in this little field over here.
Last spring, I got a chance to ask the staff what they most needed from the Friends group. And before that got out of my mouth, somebody piped up, "Clone Carl." And I kind of chuckled in acknowledgement of that. And they said, "No, I mean it, clone Carl," because he does so much work for the refuge.
Well, Carl started volunteering in 1997, and since then he has accumulated over 45,000 hours. And that's a pretty big feat for any government service, especially volunteers. And for reference speaking, it's equivalent to over 22 years of full-time service.
So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce our award recipient for the Volunteer of the Year for the entire U.S. For the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Refuge System, Carl.
It's been a long journey for me. Before retirement, I worked at General Motors for 42 years, believe it or not. And but a year before I retired, I decided I'd start volunteering somewheres because I knew I needed something to do to keep me busy and get me out of the house, so that the wife wasn't giving me too many jobs at the house, And I'm happy to report that several volunteers have stepped up and are taking responsibility for maintaining our refuge. Thanks to these people and to all you volunteers. So all you volunteers, give us a wave. The way things are going, volunteers are kind of the future of our refuge, so we got to recognize them and support them. So if it's God's will, I'm not quite done yet, as Tom said, but I may have to temper my pace just a little bit. Thank you for all for coming and joining us here today. May God bless you and have a safe trip home, and to God be the glory. Amen. The way our society is living and conducting themselves today, we continually put pressure on wildlife. It's making it harder and harder for them to survive. We're taking all the habitat away. If we don't do something to help them, eventually we aren't going to have the wildlife around here. To me, the wildlife is an important part of my life. I would encourage anybody, regardless of age, young or old, to spend some time and some effort in helping our wildlife survive.
Before we go on to our next story, a huge thank you. We're grateful to the national sponsors and to the local community sponsors who helped make this celebration and this live stream possible. We couldn't have honored these outstanding heroes of the refuge system in the places they serve without you. Thank you for standing with the refuge system, and thank you for supporting all of these amazing awardees. Every refuge needs friends. Friends help raise money for projects, they run programs, and they serve as a liaison to the community. There's nearly 180 Friends groups nationwide. Our 2025 Molly Cribble Refuge Friends Group of the Year is the Rappahannock Wildlife Refuge Friends in Virginia. Since 2009, they've contributed over 65,000 volunteer hours. They've built partnerships and helped protect Fawns Cliffs, a sacred site for the Rappahannock tribe. Here's their story.
All the landscape that you see on both sides of the bay are protected. And so this will be the view shed that folks will have even 100 years from now, hopefully with some bigger trees. My name's Marcy Kapsch, and I have been here at the Eastern Virginia Rivers National Wildlife Complex since June of 2022. Cat Point Creek runs here into Menoken Bay, and it's a tributary of the Rappahannock River. So behind me, this area is known as Dancing Point, and so it has very sacred ties to the Rappahannock tribe. Anthropologists and archaeologists are still working on it, but they do think that the Great Rappahannock Town was somewhere in the vicinity of this area.
Hello to everyone. As she said, my name is Jerry Fortune, and I'm a member of the Rappahannock tribe. And in the spirit of respect and acknowledgement, we recognize that the Rappahannock River Valley is characterized by deep-rooted traditions and rich history that is woven into the fabric of this region. As we engage with the land today, we honor and acknowledge the Rappahannock people that have nurtured this space long before us. It is alive in our stories, our songs, our spiritual practices, and that embody the wisdom of generations who have walked this very ground.
Today, we are here to celebrate and present the Molly Cribble 2025 Refuge Friends Group of the Year Award.
Let me just tell you a little bit, about like Molly Cribble. Oh, she was just a powerhouse. She believed in Friends organizations. And Molly believed that within the Friends community, there was a lot of knowledge and experience, and if we just got together and shared it, we would all be that much stronger. And she also believed that one of the key things was the partnership between the service and the Friends.
Most of our volunteers are locals. They come from anywhere up to 40 miles away. Most of them are my age, so we're a little slower than some others, but the knowledge makes up for it. I haven't seen too many volunteers in our area that don't jump into a project. If there's something needs to be done, we're going to jump in there and find a way. I'm John Jennings, and I'm transitioning from resident volunteer with U.S. Fish and Wildlife to a regular volunteer. I've been doing it since 2012 with different agencies. What we're doing is we're trying to get more outreach in the area. We try to show them what we have where, mostly fishing, hunting, nature, bird walking. But you can't talk to the public if you don't come around, You have to engage them.
This summer they hosted 2 different Kids Fishing Day events. They go out in the community and help build bird houses. We've got tons of local school groups that are coming now. It's from like 1st grade all the way to I think like 10th grade, and provide stations, and we couldn't do that without their expertise.
We have a local children's group that come to one of our units every other Wednesday just to give them something different to keep the kids involved. But most of the schools are underfunded, so we're trying to do grants to help us get the bus drivers paid, to get the gas or diesel to bring the students in here. If we could get more funds to help the schools, we would be able to do more outreach.
The tribes like to think of a team as a circle, and every member of that circle has some gift or something to provide or give to the greater good.
It's with great pleasure that I present to the Rappahannock Wildlife Refuge Friends Group, the Molly Gribble Refuge Friends Group of the Year. Congratulations.
Thank you, John. It's a great honor to be presented with this award, and I want to thank the National Wildlife Refuge Association for the award, but also for everything that you guys do for us.
The biggest thing to me is that it is very rewarding. It's very fulfilling. I want to give everybody the opportunity that I had for years, and that's our way of giving back.
To reflect on why all of this matters to our country and to our communities, I'm thrilled to be joined tonight by the National Wildlife Refuge Association's board chair, the Honorable Lynn Scarlett.
Hi, I'm Lynn Scarlett, chairman of the board of the National Wildlife Refuge Association. I've had the great good fortune to visit national wildlife refuges across the nation, from the Alaska wilds and islands in the Pacific Ocean to places in the Southwest, Midwest, and Atlantic coast. Recently, I watched thousands of tundra swans overwintering at Poquoson Lakes National Wildlife Refuge take flight as evening approached. Last year, I savored the landscapes and waters at the Klamath Basin refuges, resting and nesting places for thousands of birds. But most memorable, I think, was while I was Deputy Secretary at the Department of the Interior. I took a visit to the Wildlife Refuge at Midway Island in the Pacific Ocean, where 1.5 million Laysan albatross, parents and their young, dotted the landscape. We celebrate these individual beloved places. We celebrate refuge employees, volunteers, friends groups, and other partners who lend caring hands to these landscapes and their wildlife. We celebrate the annual awardees and congratulate them for all that they have done to sustain and enhance our wildlife refuges. But as we celebrate these individual people and places, we are reminded that they are part of a whole system. 573 national wildlife refuges across the nation. Our National Wildlife Refuge system, encompassing 96 million terrestrial acres and over 750 million marine acres, providing connectivity and anchors to conservation in the United States. These places link with other lands, public and private, providing connectivity so that species may roam. They protect special places with wildlife at risk. They provide opportunities for outdoor recreation, whether hunting and fishing, bird watching, hiking, canoeing, or more. These wildlife refuges need caring hands. They need management, whether for wildlife management and monitoring, fire risk reduction, or water system management, or invasive plant controls. They need funding to support the employees that manage facilities, monitor ecosystem health, meet and educate visitors. They need funding that supports efforts of volunteers to complement and provide a force multiplier for the work of refuge staff. Our National Wildlife Refuge system, across all 50 states and affiliated islands, helps sustain healthy lands, water, and wildlife, thriving communities, and dynamic economies linked to these places. I thank all those who are part of these efforts, with a special thanks to our awardees for their outstanding leadership.
Maintenance projects can be seen and acres can be counted, but what keeps refuges strong is harder to quantify. Expertise, judgment, decades of trust. Our next award is especially meaningful to share from here at Okefenokee because this is Dartha's Refuge. Our 2025 Employee of the Year is Dartha Campbell. This refuge was established in 1937, almost 90 years ago. And for almost 50 of those years, Dartha has been a constant. This is Dartha's story.
We tend to take for granted the clerks and the budget analysts, but they really are involved with every single program. They see the people that come in and out. They know the vendors of the refuge. They really know the refuge in a different way than other people.
I'm Dartha Campbell, and I am that budget analyst for Team 8. I have Savannah Coastal, Okefenokee, St. Mark's, and Lower Suwannee and their complexes. I see about their budgets, and I've been doing that for several years now. I started out, hard to believe, as a little clerk typist, and I have worked through all the titles with the Fish and Wildlife Refuge System. It's been interesting.
If money is the blood that keeps the refuge running, what keeps the money flowing? Well, that's the heart. That's the budget people like Dartha. And Dartha has truly, in that sense, been the heart of the Okefenokee for 49 years, more than half of the history of the refuge.
I love going out to the boardwalk and going up to the tower by myself and just being quiet there and listening to everything that's going on. You know, and the frogs, the birds, the gators in the swamp, you know, I like that.
The Okefenokee Swamp is here really because we're just a depression in the bottom of an ancient seabed that slowly filled in with fresh water, and then as the plants grew up, they fell into the water and became peat.
Well, one biologist recently was describing the peat here as almost a living organism in itself, and like there's the sphagnum moss that covers the layer of peat, and when the water levels start decreasing, that dries out and becomes a lighter color so that reflects the light more, and that carbon within the peat is protected.
Right now, the refuge is at over 407,000 acres. And what makes it really unique is that basically it is in a pristine condition. Not to say that it hasn't been touched by the hand of man, it has, but the hydrology is still intact. The flora and fauna are still intact. And so basically what you have is this giant, fully functioning wetland ecosystem that is simply not found anywhere else in North America on this size.
These are our new trailer pads, and these are our volunteers.
Recently, about 5 years ago, the refuge was given $1 million to replace our volunteer village with a bunkhouse. But when it came back from contracting, they said it was going to cost $2 million. And so Dartha worked with our maintenance crew to come up with an alternate idea of putting in tiny homes instead. And so we were able to replace them for about $800,000. And so if it had not been Dartha working with the maintenance program, we would have lost $1 million. Instead, we got one of the, I would say, absolute best volunteer villages that I have ever seen.
Every little cent, you know, as budget people, we're trying to save and see where is the best we can get that money, the use for that money. I'm kind of worried about that what's going to happen on that.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. Dartha has been a steady force, ensuring that everything works, that staff are supported, vendors are paid, programs move forward, and the refuge operates with excellence. These employees, and many of you in the room here, and those that are not, they've carried a piece of Dartha's guidance with them. It's made them stronger. Please join me in congratulating Dartha Campbell, Employee of the Year.
I appreciate everybody, and I just appreciate you all coming tonight. It makes me feel so good, you know, that I have all my friends that...
It was a joy to come to the office every day, mainly because of Dartha.
She's a great and loving person, though, and I'm so proud to be here with her.
But Dartha was my mentor. She taught me everything I know.
She's been a constant and great sense of humor, and I miss you. I love you.
Had fun going to wildfires and stuff, so I really enjoyed working with you.
She taught me so much, and she's taught me so much, and she helped prepare me for things I didn't ever think that I'd be capable of doing.
And Dartha, I just can't say enough about you, how you saved me from trouble, and I just treasure the times that we spent together, and I hope you have a good rest of your time.
And then the final thing is, we're federal employees, we're good people, and I've always been proud when someone asks me, what do you do, where do you work? When I say I work for the Oslpov National Wildlife Refuge, I've always been proud to say that. Never regretted. That's it, the guys. I'm through. My favorite colors, and I appreciate this.
I'm Cynthia Martinez. I'm Chief of the National Wildlife Refuge System. I've worked for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for 32 years. I want people to realize how expansive the National Wildlife Refuge System is, right? There's at least one refuge in all 50 states and all 5 territories. And so if you think about that on the globe, we're talking, if you start in the east, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, all the way up to Maine, to the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, which is basically on top of the globe. When you go past Hawaii, past Guam, to the Mariana Islands, back down to American Samoa, where Rose Atoll National Wildlife Refuge is, and back to San Diego. If you can imagine that on the globe, that is the expansive nature of the National Wildlife Refuge System. Refuges are seasonal. They're extraordinary aspect of wildlife gathering, but sometimes for only a short period of time during the migration. And I think people need to recognize that, because you can go to a migratory bird refuge where there's thousands and thousands of migratory birds there, but you go at the wrong time of year and you might not see anything. And I think that's the thing that catches people by surprise. And so you really have to think about refuges as being seasonal. Oh, it's the people. It's the people of the refuge system, which includes our employees, our friends, our volunteers. I mean, many of these people give their entire careers caring for the lands, the wildlife, their habitats, where wildlife and people can thrive. Some carry on the values of the refuge system into other organizations, and that really expands the breadth of the National Wildlife Refuge System. Oh, partners multiply impact. They add expertise to challenging conservation problems. They add funding, they had equipment, they had their expertise, like expanding habitat restoration or wildlife monitoring and visitor services, like far beyond what we could accomplish alone by ourselves. Partnerships, they also connect refuges to people. They deepen community ownership and trust. They create more opportunities for education and recreation. They ensure that refuges remain relevant, that they're supported, and that they're woven into the fabric of the communities that we serve. Well, I hope every viewer gets to experience their own experience on National Wildlife Refuge. But some of the examples that I can think of are really like the feeling of awe when you discover something for the very first time. It could be a breathtaking view or an unexpected sighting of a rare species. It could be making a happy memory with your family that you'll never forget. The sounds of waterfowl taking flight, a child laughing as they're running along a trail, a quiet moment on the edge of a wetland, maybe identifying that new bird on the birders list that you hadn't seen before, a festival celebrating wildlife and people, listening to an elder share a very special moment about their favorite time on a National Wildlife Refuge. Visit. Come and see us. Make a memory with your friends and your family. Volunteer. We need all the volunteers we can get because we can't do it by ourselves. Or join a friends group. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Thank you for your time in celebrating these wonderful people who have dedicated their time, energy, and passion to the National Wildlife Refuge System.
The next award is the Paul Kregel Refuge Manager of the Year, named after our nation's first refuge manager, who served at the Pelican Island National Wildlife Refuge in Florida, the same state where our next awardee comes from. Refuge managers pull it all together. They're planners and mentors, problem solvers, and they'll jump in and do any work that needs to be done. The 2025 Paul Kregel Refuge Manager of the Year embodies what it means to be a civil servant. And that is Andrew Gouda of the Lower Suwannee and Cedar Keys National Wildlife Refuges. Here's Andrew's story.
These refuges are part of the community's culture here. That's what I think is the most important thing, is that we've become and have been part of the community's fabric, and that we identify with that, and hopefully they identify us with them. Well, my name is Andrew Gouda. I've worked for the refuge system since 2001, when I started in the Florida Keys, and I retired in April of 2025 after about 25 years. I so value wild places, and to me, the most important thing for me to sustain me and my soul is to be able to enter the food chain, that I am just a part of a larger system. And I love that wilderness. The marine wilderness is what we have out here.
So, the Suwannee River is one of the largest undammed rivers left in the United States. It goes from Okefenokee and way up into central Georgia, all the way to the coast in Florida. So this system is an incredible system. With the free-flowing Suwannee River, that brings nutrients to the coast, which spurs primary production and healthy seagrass beds. But the key is it's not too many nutrients, not too high. But it's also created fantastic habitat for fish and fisheries. Robust oyster beds, thousands and thousands of acres of seagrass here, and so many of our fishery species depend on the estuary, at least in early life.
Well, we've got some auspicious challenges. One, we've just lived through a series of hurricanes here that have been very impactful to the refuge. Hurricane Helene was 6 feet higher than anything we'd ever seen. Our city's habitable area have been just knocked to their knees. We've lost hundreds of homes. Our little ecosystem, which is very much flat land, seagrasses, and mangroves is the nursery for nearly all this fishery. And so the impact on our economy is immeasurable. But that 10 or 15 or 20 feet that's right on the edge, and the edge of all these waters around here, is invaluable to not just this state, but to our whole lifestyle.
So when it comes to managing the estuary and the coastal islands and all that, you have to deal with the watershed. You have to think holistically about how to manage this watershed.
We're going to go to Seahorse Key, which is our main refuge island out here.
And Andrew is a big thinker. Like he's open to big ideas. And it really was a perfect fit to get him in this refuge because he's the kind of guy that can have that vision of understanding that it's all connected.
So this is the Cedar Keys Light Station. It was built in 1854. That's when it first started as a light. And it was decommissioned in 1915. It sits on this dune, which is the highest point of the Florida Gulf of Mexico. It's at 54 feet, and the light itself is at 75 feet.
A lot of times at the university, we tend to be isolated from the management process because we do a research project and we give over the results, and then we don't know what happens with it. Sometimes, you know, we're not really engaged in that part of the process. But with Andrew, we have access to the management side of how they're going to manage fish and wildlife, how they're going to manage vegetation. And so we can try to dovetail the science that we do that's going to help inform that kind of management on the landscape.
So just in the last 2 hurricanes, we've lost more than half of the protection for the lighthouse.
That would have separated them by water from the place of the ancestors. So this place, especially because of the preservation and conservation efforts of the National Wildlife Refuge System and of the local communities, this represents one of the most intact landscape, regional level contexts of what coastal dwelling was like in the state of Florida for thousands of years. So we have sites going back to the Archaic period, and Shell Mound represents a view of a landscape that was that connected people both through the land, across the islands. It demonstrates a record of the kinds of lifeways that people had living on the coast, how they were fishing, how they were gathering shellfish.
Andrew made it easy for researchers to access the refuge. And so I would say it's access and that ease of access, which comes from communication and good relationships that he had fostered.
Andrew was very deliberate to say, please add my cell phone number to that sign, so that if anybody calls on Saturday evening, I'm more than happy to take that call. And he would take a 20-minute call about somebody sighting a skunk ape on a Saturday. And he did not dismiss that call. He didn't diminish he was very engaged, and he was always from the perspective of what can I do for you?
We are all better for having worked with you and for knowing you. We celebrate you today and thank you for being an incredible conservation leader, person, and friend. Congratulations.
You now have taken your place among a long line of conservation heroes and reminded us that the strength of the system truly lies in its people. It is my pleasure to congratulate you as the 2025 Paul Craigle Refuge Manager of the Year. Please join me in honoring Andrew. Thank you.
I grew up in southeastern Pennsylvania, which was Mennonite, Pennsylvania Dutch, and Amish farmland, and working farms and forests. I realized then, as development slowly creeped in and covered that landscape with houses and, urbanization, that this is something I wanted to preserve, land and water conservation. So thank you all for your conservation values, for your support of the National Wildlife Refuge System, the staff, and the community here where we live, and for all the hard work that all of you do. And again, thank you for the shared laughter. When I arrived here, we had 17 staff, and that was 15 years ago, and now we're down to 3, 4, I think. I hope that the refuge system and these refuges will always be funded to the point where they can function productively, because when you lose a certain critical portion of staff, you're just trying to keep your nose above water, and that's no fun.
In South Florida, at Arthur R. Marshall Loxahatchee National Wildlife Refuge, Conservation Ranger Camp gives high school students a free, immersive introduction to wildlife refuge management and conservation careers. Created in partnership with refuge staff and the local community, the program connects participants to hands-on learning, new possibilities, and the landscapes and wildlife at the heart of this work. Tonight, we are honored to share this sneak peek of an Emmy-nominated film called Garden of the Glades, a week at Conservation Ranger Camp. Directed by Vincent Marcucci, the film documents the experiences of the inaugural class of Conservation Rangers. The entire documentary is available to view for free on pbs.org.
The camp? Oh yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
It's gonna be my first time actually going to a summer camp that isn't like just chilling in my hometown.
That would be overcoming my fear during this camp. And then I would say I'm kind of glad to do it, but like being in mud and everything, that's not my thing. That's not my sword. That's not my cup of tea. So like I said, I'm girly. I'm not a tomboy. I wouldn't see myself like walking through mud. That alone, it's like, yuck. It's an ick. It's an ick for me.
Loxahatchee is a really special place because it is considered an urban refuge. So that's part of why we've identified the Glades community as, one of those places that we really want to do full-on engagement. So what are ways that we can engage with under-resourced communities, communities that have been excluded?
Yeah, sure. You want me to throw you one?
We want to use the refuge as another part of their tool to put in their tool bag for life.
The person on the boat actually helped me discover new species.
We found about some frogs, a lot of frogs, a lot of new frogs.
I really feel like I do this for a living.
Where y'all walking to? I learned that I could keep an open mind to like new things, try new things, and not be like closed-minded, because I would never thought a day in my life I would be finna walk into a swamp. Like that's outrageous.
So we in the swamp as right now. As you guys can see, this not regular. I don't do this. This is my first time ever doing this. So as you guys can see, we're walking through the marsh right now, man. Oh, butterflies.
I'm not really a people person. So when I came out here and I got to meet everybody, I found out that if I actually try and apply myself, that I can actually really enjoy being around people, being around the animals, talking with everybody, getting to learn with everybody.
I hope we continue to grow this and into a program that can offer more and for more students. Teenagers to me are one of the most important groups because these kids can make a life for themselves and also really help guide our world in the right direction.
If these stories moved you, please don't let it end here. This is a moment when the refuge system needs people to show up, to speak up, to help keep these places strong, and to stand with the staff, volunteers, and friends who make this mission possible. Your support helps us protect, promote, and enhance the refuge system, and it helps keep this work moving forward. Please share this event. Bring someone else into the refuge system. It makes a real difference too. Thank you. As we close tonight, I want to come back to what these stories show us. The refuge system is one of America's greatest assets because of the people who support them. The volunteers who provide tens of thousands of hours of grit and passion. The friends group who create community, develop partnerships, and are there as the refuge's best friend. and the staff, thank you for your knowledge and your integrity that you carry through decades of change. To all of our awardees, thank you for everything that you do for your refuge. Thank you for everything you do for the refuge system, and thank you for everything that you do for the United States. These lands and waters bring us all together. But you know what? They're not red and they're not blue. They're red, white, and blue, and that's really important right now. To everyone joining us tonight, thank you for your support for the refuge system, your support for the Refuge Association. Your support helps ensure that all of us have a place for generations to come where wildlife can thrive and we can all enjoy. Thank you so much. Have a great night.